Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Road to Passwordless, our monthly webinar. In this one, we're going to go about all the things you have to know before you start going passwordless. So first of all, I am Igal Flegmann. I am the co-founder and CEO of Ketos. I was at Microsoft in the team in charge of doing the passwordless authentication and all that stuff for a while. Now I'm at Ketos helping people go passwordless. So let's get started. So first of all, why should you go passwordless? And this is what all the vendors are going to tell you. It simplifies authentication. It dramatically reduces exposure to phishing attacks and account takeovers. And you'll see stats that it's actually like 99% accurate because the easiest way is to steal a password or to phish someone. And the other one is it is easy and it saves you thousands of man hours. And in here, some vendors go a little bit crazy with the numbers and they were like, well, like putting up a long password, going to your phone, clicking yes, that takes 20 seconds. You do that 25 times a day and you multiply that by all your employees, you're saving thousands of man hours. But even if you don't count those things, I don't know, a little fishy. You still save thousands of hours on help desk calls. Like every time someone forgets a password, doing the password reset, because usually these passwordless methods, one, they're super easy to use, so there's less account forgetting, or like it's harder for people to like lose their YubiKey and so on. So, and you usually have easier recovery methods, so it actually saves you help desk time and employee time on doing all those things. Then it also resolves the password reuse problem because there is a huge problem with passwords being reused everywhere. So an employee might use the same password that they use with you on Facebook, and then if Facebook gets compromised, they can use it and go across. So like that has happened when LinkedIn got compromised, and they were able to get into Dropbox because the employee was using the same password. So easiest way to get rid of that, don't have passwords, have a hardware token, have a mobile authentication app. And the last one is it saves you money in cyber insurance. So we actually at Ketos, we had to up our cyber insurance coverage. And by putting that we are passwordless and we do all these security checks, it ends up saving us money in cyber insurance. So if, if you're doing this, it's kind of like an investment. It might not pay it fully off, but it will help you offset some of the cost. And also at the end of the day, you're more secure. What vendors don't tell you is you can probably do it with your identity provider. You don't have to go like if you're already using Microsoft, Google, something like that, they all support passwordless authentication and they all support it for free. So there's no crazy thing that you have to do. You don't have to go purchase Hyperduo, any of those providers. You can just do it for free with your identity provider. You might need some tools to help you with the onboarding and so on, but it's there, it's supported, and it's been supported for many years. The second one is not all password lists are the same, but also not everybody needs the same password list. So we have your YubiKeys and your hardware tokens. These are super secure hardware password lists. You basically have to steal this from me to be able to get into my account and get my PIN. That's top level security, but maybe not everybody in your company needs to have a $40 key or a $8 smart card to do this. You might have some people with very high privilege use these things, and then everybody else, maybe not the tech savvy, they use their phone for passwordless authentication. But also you have to think of the user experience, and we'll cover this in another slide. But there's the perception of what people are doing. For example, I know hotels are going for the hardware keys, not only because they're a big target, as we saw with MGM, but also because it doesn't look to have your customer-facing employee to be on their phone and be like, oh, no, I swear I'm authenticating. So it looks better to just have them and insert their YubiKey and authenticate. The next step is the password list that you're trying to implement might not be supported for all your workloads. So you have to think of all your workloads. So for example, here, FIDO2 might not be supported on mobile iOS, or it might not be supported on premise. In that case, you might still be able to use a key, so like a YubiKey or something like that with FIDO2 for half of your workloads, but you have to complement that with Azure CVA or phone authentication. So it's kind of like a mix. You have to make sure you take a holistic look, because a lot of these vendors will show you like, oh no, this is the golden path. this works perfectly for this. And then you're like, all right, cool. How do I do that in my iPad? And they're like, yeah, we don't do that. And the last one is it's not a silver bullet. So yeah, you have to protect your identity, but that's not the end of it. That you still have to protect your devices. You still have to do identity isolation, and we'll cover all that in the end. But let's be honest, if you cover your identity, yes, it's a great step forward. You're protected a lot of things, but that's not the last thing you'll ever have to do. So things to consider before you start. As I said, the user experience. So I kind of already covered it. Like, what do you want your users to have? Do you want them to have their phone out? Do you want them to just be able to put in their cards? Um, Also, like, are they able to put the cards, or like, is the USB port on the back? Maybe you need smart card readers that are on the front. So all these little things that might seem not that important, they really add up when you have thousands of users. And the more comfortable you do it, the less resistance there is, and the easier it is for people to be part of it. Then use cases where passwords are utilized. So I see this problem so many times. People are like, oh no, we're super secure. We went passwordless. We have passwordless in our corporate identities. And it's like, all right, that's amazing. What are you doing for Wi-Fi and VPN? We still use a password. Servers and databases, we still use a password. SSH, we use a shared SSH key. Third-party services that might not support SSO, they might not have it. So when you're looking at this, yes, it's all by steps. You can't just solve everything at once. And I don't want you to like see all these problems and be like, well, we're not doing anything. So it is by steps, but once you do passwordless for your corporate identity, that doesn't stop there. You have to go to SSH, go to the Wi-Fi, go to the servers and databases, and then at the end, make sure that all your other services support SSO. And we have had people ask us if we support SSO, because if not, they can't do it. Like, it becomes part of their compliance guidelines. You cannot purchase a solution that doesn't support SSO. And then the last one is cost of implementation. You have to cost it out. There's going to be cost involved. There's going to be education, help desk, infrastructure cost. What tools are you going to purchase? All those things, you have to do it, but also look at the runtime cost. Is this going to save you money in the long term? So, for example, we see with EasyCMS, help desk cost calls go down by 50%. So now you have 50% of your help desk that can do other things. So all those things, and we have a great ROI calculator in our site. So if you go there, you can kind of see, you enter your parameters and you can see how much it's going to cost you and so on, and you can make decisions out of that. So step number one, select your tools. IDP selection. You already probably have your identity provider, so that one you already selected. So you just have to see what they do. And as I said, I don't know of a single identity provider that doesn't support passwordless. So the one you are supports it. No need to go run, get another tool to passwordless and do identity management, because you're also introducing another attack surface, as we saw this week with Okta getting hacked. Like, you're just adding more to your system. Yes, it happens to everybody, but it's something to keep in mind. Second one is passwordless methods. So here we already kind of talked about it, but you have to look at the risk profile. It's not one size fits all. You might have your C-level people use hardware, and then everybody else use phone, or like you kind of like said it. Maybe your customer-facing people use hardware because they get targeted more, and then your back office people don't use it. So you have to think of that. Think of what phone they're using, OS, what support there is for all those things in all the different things. Also, there is like, if you're asking people to install the Authenticator app, is it in their personal device? Because they might say no. So you have to think about that. They might say like, no, we don't want any corporate stuff in our device. And then, if applicable, distribution method. So before, it used to be really easy for rolling out smart cards. You were in the office, so you just said, go to the help desk and get your card. Now, a lot of people are remote. How do you deliver those cards everywhere? Do you have a tool that helps you with that? Do you have a way of doing it, or do you fully outsource that? So we have customers that ask us to send the keys to the people. So, something to think. The next one is Windows Hello for Business. So let's talk about it, because Microsoft will tell you like, yeah, Windows Hello for Business, that's all you need. Go passwordless with Windows Hello for Business. Then everybody else says like, you need more than Windows Hello for Business. So let's address the elephant in the room. Windows Hello for Business is great. We use it at Kiddos. It's basically like a smart card because it's something you have your laptop. So they literally have to take your laptop and something your PIN or something your face or a finger that you're using with your laptop. The only problem with Windows Hello for Business is the enrollment. So you cannot enroll a new laptop with the old laptop's Windows Hello for Business. So for that cases, what we do is we have a YubiKey. That one you can use in the Ubi experience of Windows. You enter it, then you register your Windows Hello for Business, and then you keep your YubiKey as the second factor. So that's your your laptop gets lost, you have Windows Hello for Business. Your YubiKey gets lost, you request a new one, you have Windows Hello for Business to onboard the new one. So you keep kind of like those two, because usually they recommend having like a fail-safe if one gets broken or something, or like you forget your laptop, you have your YubiKey, you can authenticate. So that's kind of how we do it. So yes, Windows Hello for Business is a great option, but you need something to bootstrap Windows Hello for Business. So that's a great way to do it. And if your risk profile allows it, you might be able to do Windows Hello for Business and bootstrap with a TAP. I personally don't like TAP because TAP, temporary access pass from Microsoft, is just a password that you have to get from your support team that might get social engineer, how we did with MGM. So something to keep in mind. Another thing is your tools. You got to select some lifecycle tools that make it easier. Are you going to manually control all these all these hardware tokens, all these things? If a user leaves, are you revoking the certificates? Are you revoking the FIDO2 keys? If someone loses a key. So there's tools out there, CMSs out there that help you with that. So look into that. And as I said, most of these tools, at least I can speak for our pricing, it's actually way cheaper than trying to do it manually. So at the end of the day, it ends up saving you money. And then, as I mentioned in the last slide, tools to fully cover your organization needs. So you start with something, you start going passwordless, but make sure you have a radio server that will allow you to do Wi-Fi authentication with certificates. You have PAM software to be able to authenticate into servers and remove access when you're done. Check if your Wi-Fi and VPN support multi-factor. If not, you will have to upgrade. So then the second part, and this is the most crucial part of the whole process, is select a small security inclined users that will pilot this, tell you all the problems, where you can improve, what things they need, and invite them to the planning. So if you invite them, and this is something I did at Microsoft, we invited them to the planning, we invited them to the meetings, asked their requirements, and ensure that we were meeting their needs. And if they had a question, we helped them answer. Once we ran that for a few months, we fixed all the issues that they had. We thought of all the things that might come up, created guides. So this is a great point to create guides. Every time they ask you a question, write it up, make it a guide. So when you deploy this to thousands of users, all of a sudden you have a guide for everybody. So yeah, once you enable the passwordless authentication, you get those type of things, you mitigate the issues. And once you have that, you expand to someone in your leadership team. This is key. So now you have the amazing experience that you're aiming to have for all your employees. Now you go and do this for the executive team. That gives you kind of like the power, the buy-in that you need for them. So once they live it, they will see like, oh yeah, this is actually good. This is actually more secure, and it's not that bad. Like there's a few things you get used to. And I remember doing this personally, like me going to their office, being like, "Sir, here is your YubiKey. This is how you use it. You plug it in. Here are some tips that I used to use to make it easier." Like, and like you come up with those tips. And honestly, if you guys have questions, happy to talk hours about tips about like how to make it more seamless. If you have multiple identities that I'll talk in the North Star, how you keep those isolated and so on. And then at the end, you explain the cost savings long term. When you're talking those meetings, you got to talk about the long term. As I said, avoid those crazy numbers. You don't want to say like, oh, we're going to save $10 million, even though my budget is $1 million. That doesn't make sense. So make sure you are actually using real numbers. There's a lot of Forrester and Gartner numbers out there that actually help you make the point. And also they might ask you, okay, in our POC, how much money have we saved? So keep track of those, how many less support requests you're getting. And so if you see this steep decline, you can really help you to roll it out to the rest of the organization. So really nailing this will really help you get buy-in. So then the last step is setting up the North Star. So as I said, going passwordless in your corporate identity is just a start. So you're starting with going fully passwordless, but then you need to do identity isolation. So, you have your corporate identity. So for example, at Keto's, you hack my email. You only get access to my email. You don't get access to production. You don't get access to any of that stuff because that's in a completely different identity that is completely isolated, completely different YubiKey, different domain, different everything. Then we take it to a different level. But this is, as I said, this is not for everybody. We run PKI and passwordless authentication for larger enterprises and governments. So we have to take it to a whole new level. So we do device isolation. So basically, I want to access production. I have to request access. So that's a just-in-time access. So I request access. Someone else approves it. I go to my special laptop that it's only used for accessing production, and it has checks that it's secure and all that stuff. It meets my conditional access policies, and then I access production. Obviously, that's a little too much. Most people with just having either identity isolation, fully passwordless, and conditional access, make sure you're coming from like a trusted device, trusted IP, there's no impossible travel, all those things is good enough. And then the last thing is move left. So, okay, once you secure your environment, you secure your production environment, you'll see attackers move left in the production cycle. So they'll try to attack your code. They'll try to attack your developer identities. So you have to keep that in mind. Maybe you'll have to do just-in-time access to GitHub. And the last one, and this should be at any stage, you always treat your infrastructure with the assume breach mentality. So you are always trying to find that someone is in there, like you're always trying to detect, you always have alerts, and you always treat every alert as an intrusion. So if you get an alert, for example, we have an alert for if anything changes in our Azure environment. If we get one of those, we actually trigger everything to make sure that it was a known good. So like if we see that someone is like, like an employee changed something, we call them up and be like, hey, was this you? Or like if we're in the office, hey, was this you? Why did you do this? Why didn't you? So treat every single one of those alerts as if it's someone a bad actor, because you never know when it's actually a bad actor, and you don't want to ignore one of those alerts. So with that, we move up to Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, this is the time to ask it. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you have any questions that come up or anything, always feel free to email us, and have a great rest of your day.